Okay. So good day, everyone. Again, this is the group 6. So for today's presentation, we will present about the workplace communication and its form. So without further ado, let's start. So before we begin our presentation, so let me tell you that sit back, relax, enjoy the presentation, listen, and most importantly is to participate. So the agenda or the objectives of our presentation is will be begins with opening remarks, energizer, followed by the discussion, which is the workplace communication, verbal communication, body language, and facial expression, phone conversation, written communication, and ends with the closing remarks. So yeah. So before we begin, let me introduce you the members of the group 6. So here we have Miss Macaheto, Miss Sabalvaro, Miss Rebibis, and Miss Santos. So now let's begin our energizer. So our energizer is very simple, which is the 4 picks 1 word. So the simple instruction is figure out the pictures by group and guess the right answer. And since we only have limited participants for today, so I guess everyone is welcome to guess their own answer. And the first one who will give the right answer will be the one who received the point. So the first question is the hint is 1 word and composed of 9 letters. So I will give you guys a couple of seconds to guess the right answer. And the first one who guess it will receive a point. So just paste your answer with the 4 pictures that you can see. Okay, and any guess?
Group work.
Group and more. You can type your own answer, guys. Yes. Shake hands. Is that all your guesses? Are your guess? Okay, so that's end with the question number 1. Okay, don't worry, guys, because your answer will are being viewed by the other members. The second question is it is a 2 words, starts with letter P and ends with letter N. So guess your answer. Do you have any guesses? Just guess anything. If as long as you can guess, we will find out if that's the correct answer. Phone connection? Probably. Let's see. Any guess? Anyone? So I guess that's end the second question. So let's uh let's let's continue with the third question. So the third question is very easy. So I think you should guess it. You know, so simple.
Written communication.
That's excellent. Thank you. Okay, the fourth is I think it is the fourth question. I'm not quite sure. So the next is two words, and the first word starts with letter V.
Verbal
Verbal
communication.
communication.
Thank you. Okay. And the last one. It is a two words, and we make these faces every day.
Facial expression.
Okay. So thank you for your participation. So let's see the correct answer of the questions. So these are the correct answer. The first one is workplace. The second one is phone conversation, followed by written conversation. The fourth one is verbal communication. And lastly is the facial expression. So that's how we end our energizer. So, and your participation will be highly appreciated, and we will be giving you a points as we appreciate your presence. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. So, since we are done with the Energizer, I know you already have an insight of what we are going to tackle today. So, today we will be discussing about communication in the workplace. And as you can see or you can observe, there is two words that is important to discuss in this chapter. It is communication and the other one is workplace. Let's try to look back in our definition of communication. We already know that communication is exchanging and sharing of information between two parties. We also have said that the main aim of communication is the passing and receiving of communication from one person to another. The second word is workplace. When we speak of workplace, that means that is a person's place of employment, a building or a room such as an office or factory or a shop where work is done or performed. It is also being defined as building or room where people in a organization perform their jobs. So let's try to combine the word workplace and communication. So when we combine it, we can call it workplace communication. And it is now being defined as transmitting of information between one person or group and another person or group in a organization. It can include emails, text messages, voicemails, notes, and etc. So, workplace communication is also a vital to an organization's ability to be productive and cooperate or operate smoothly. So, there is three advantage of workplace communication. It is workplace communication improves worker productivity. It also can increase employee job satisfaction. And for the third one, it can also have a positive effect on absenteeism and turnover rates. So if we're going to tackle about the first one, which is it can improve worker productivity. So researchers have shown that effective lateral and work with communication leads into improvement in overall company's performance. Is also been discovered that employees who are graded as highest in production had received the most effective communication from their superiors. And the best example of that is Anna, who works in engineering and her prototype of toys received accolades. She is an effective communication about her design and how will be played with a real life by kids. Okay, so the second one or the second advantage of workplace communication is employee or increase employee job satisfaction. Employees feel empowered if they're able to have upward communication. So once we call upward, it is when information flow upward in a organization and usually consists of feedback. If bosses and manager are able to listen to their employee and respond their leads to increase an employee job satisfaction. In addition, employee is also happy if there is an intense downward communication. It is which the information flowing down from superiors or managers to direct reports. So example of that is Anna recently sent an email to her boss recommending that her department upgrade designs software. Her upper communication feedback was not just acknowledged but also act in a pan resulting in a very happy design too. And the last advantage of communication or workplace communication is it can also have a positive effect on absenteeism and turnover rates. So communication flows are very important to workers. Employees have to feel secure that they're receiving truthful and updating information from supervisors or superiors. They also want to have mobility to share ideas, thoughts, and concern within the company. So studies have shown that even after layoff, companies have excellent communication and able to obtain the surviving employees. So best example of that is Anna did survive on murder, but she has very concern about her future with the company. Her immediate manager communicated right away that she is a huge value of or to the organization and will be getting a promotion with you near. So this is also provided virtue with the reason to fully commit to a new organizational structure. Just to give you a little heads up before we proceed to the forms of workplace communication. So if there is a advantage in workplace communication, there will be a disadvantage of it. So the first one, it can lead the snowball effect in over or worker actions. And also many times that when employees quit, there is a snowballs factors. Additional employees also quit. So also it can lead to worker burnout or information overload. So while most of employee are happy about the ability to communicate with upward or both upward and downward. In an organization, there are limits to the amount of information that they want to receive, and that will be the disadvantage of workplace communication. So let's now proceed to the forms of communication in workplace. That will be discussed by Ms. Makehato. Thank you so much.
First is the verbal communication. So what does it mean? It is facilitated by the use of voice and words to share information with other people or to social interact with them. Also in verbal, it establishes a direct and private line of connection between sender and receiver. Here it can be through face-to-face or with the use of gadgets, by video call or voice call. But if possible, it is suggested to use face-to-face type of verbal communication so we can eliminate some of the misunderstanding that might occur. And in workplace, verbal communication is important as it boosts employee morale, engagement, productivity, and also it gives satisfaction. And of course, in every part of communication, there would be a challenges, and in workplace, it would affect a lot. Challenges includes poor choice of wordings. And in the workplace, we use appropriate conversational styles which can be formal or informal. And we all know naman that informal conversation is more on casual communication between coworkers or someone around the individual, while formal formal is usually used when talking to the boss, teachers, or someone in a more high position than the person. And that's why we should always be mindful of the words we let out of our mouths as they have an impact to others. Second is the physical disabilities. We can't deny that there would always be discrimination in the workplace, which of course affects the communication towards people. And that's why we often see that there are unequal treatment towards those people who have physical disabilities. Even though we say that it is 2022, change your attitude or your mindset, but we can change or we can't deny the fact that there would always be bad people or disrespectful people who don't have the guts to be kind to others, and that's why it is part of the challenges in terms of verbal communication in a workplace. Third is the ineffective utilization of communication techniques, which is connected to poor choice of wording. And just like what I have said earlier, that here using a proper way of communication would lead to misunderstanding. So some of the ineffective use of communication techniques would be using too much of jargons or technical terms. And of course, not all people naman know those words. So it is important to identify or to know those ineffective ways of communication so you yourself can avoid them. Lastly is the subjective opinions. Here in workplace communication, if you only believe to what your opinion is or you only use your own views towards the matter instead of the truth or facts, then of course it would lead or it would cause a problems or a misunderstanding to others as may not agree to what you say to them. So it's better to be more objective. Now let's move on to the importance of verbal communication. First is it corrects our wrongdoings because we know naman how powerful the word is. Just by saying sorry nga or to try make yourself clear to others of what you have done, then they would understand it and might even try to forgive you. Second is it brings clarity. Of course, there are often times that we do not articulate ourselves clearly and our words or action are often misconstrued. And here in verbal communication, it helps to clarify things, misunderstandings, and provides more accurate information. Third is it creates relationship. In a workplace, relationship to others is more important, and that's what verbal communication do to build strong relationship by conversation and to share thoughts and feelings that would connect them. And creating relationship through verbal communication would help individuals to understand and respect each other. Fourth is one of the importance of verbal communication is the sharing of ideas. Here, individual connect to people, thus the eventual giving each other thoughts and ideas, and of course creativeness that would help them to achieve what they want in the workplace itself, or maybe in some particular projects. For example, in a workplace, sharing ideas to your coworkers would be better since it would create a great outcomes for the projects. And lastly, it gives motivation. Just like what I have said earlier, words is powerful. So giving word of appreciation or support to others would help them to boost confidence, moods, or to feel motivated, and it would help them to be more happy and energetic to do the work. For example, wouldn't we all smile if we just heard to someone saying you look great or I'm so proud of you, right? So that's why in verbal communication one of its importance is it gives motivation. Now that we are done with the verbal communication, let's move on to the body language and facial expression. Body language is a form of communication in which information is expressed or conveyed through physical behaviors rather than words. And some of the example of these behaviors are facial expressions, which I will also discuss later. Next is body posture, gestures, eye movement, touch, and use of space are some of the example of physical behavior of a person used in a body language. So body language is also the same as facial expressions. Both of them is part of nonverbal communication where no words used. So the emotions and attitudes can clearly seen here. And if you are able to understand body language, it means that you can pick up on emotion that go unspoken, which provides useful feedback. But of course, we should always be aware or be careful when it comes to looking at the body language, also in facial expression, because it may lead to misinterpretation. Next, these are the example of showing negative body language when a person is upset, bored, dissatisfied, or stressed. So first is the arms is folded in the front of the body. Second is if the body is turned away from you. Third is if a person is not listening and gazing at something else or into space. Fourth is if the facial expression is so minimal or tense. Fifth is if the eyes is downcast and basically maintaining little eye contact. Lastly is nail biting, which often happen when a person is having anxiety or stress. So those are some of the example, and actually there's a lot of negative body language, and if you want to see more you can just google it. Next, so of course if there's negative then there's positive body language, and people also use their body language to convey or share positive feelings such as trust, interest, and happiness. And if you spot these signs to people you are talking to, then that means they are engaged with what you are saying and at ease with the situation. And by adopting these behaviors yourself, you can support your points in conversation and convey ideas more clearly and avoid sending mixed signals or messages. So some of the examples are have an open postures, maintain eye contact, handshake, and of course smile. Also, I didn't put many example of it na since you already have knowledge of those different positive body language naman na, since I know that um, some of you often use it. And I want to add to that using positive body language can help you to show to other people a good impression. And of course, let's not forget that all body language may or may not apply to everyone. For example, people may have different cultural backgrounds from you, and positive gestures in one country can be negative in others. So it's better to reflect first on how you use your body language to someone, and of course avoid assumptions. And if you think now you're getting mixed signs from someone, then it's better to ask them instead of diving into conclusion, which is very important in workplace. So you can also apply positive body language to support your own verbal messages. This is especially important when meeting new people, especially in public, or participating in interviews or negotiations. And for sure naman na kayo, or yung ilan dito, during interview kay Doc Bessa, gumamit ng body language to explain more or to express yung sagot nila. Next is the facial expressions, which are vital significant in human social interaction, as it convey personal emotions and reveal an individual's goals within a social situation or in a workplace. And just like body language, it is mainly part of nonverbal communication. So here we need to remember that facial expression is very important in human communication, and the face is also responsible for your communicating not only the thoughts or the ideas but also the emotions. So with the facial expression, we can easily see if a person is satisfied or dissatisfied with what we have said, and especially in workplace, showing appropriate facial expressions such as smiling like that can maintain good interaction or impression to your coworkers or to your boss. And that's why facial expression and body language really matters in workplace. So from the picture presented, these are the common facial expression we often use such as sad, happy, confused, surprise, anger, and excitement. And that's my report about the body language and facial expression, and also my report about the verbal communication. And I hope you understand something. Let's now move on. Next.
Now let's begin with the phone conversation. One of the forms of workplace communication is phone conversations. So let's begin with defining the phone conversation. When we say phone conversation, it is a one-way communication. It is still considered as a communication despite of having the word phone in this form. So if we're going to define it, phone conversation is a one-way communication. It is a communication that still considered as we share our thoughts, informations with others. But the only difference to this one is we use phone or any gadgets in order to interact with others. So let's more find out about this one. So according to the Free Dictionary as one of my sources, it defined telephone communication as one of the most widespread and expeditious forms of communication. It provides for the exchange of information in all areas of human endeavor, including the industry, agriculture, government, science, culture, public health, and even personal services. So let's expand it more. Phone conversation. The first one is phone will be a common tool in every business. Since the settings for this one is a workplace, phone is one of the tool in order to have an effective communication in in every business. Phone is a vital thing that you need to have in order to help your business grow. The second one is tone. Tone will become a vital thing to consider in every conversation because when we all know that in phone conversation we don't have any physical interaction happening and all we can do is hear from them or see them through virtual. The third one is some people like having a conversation by phone while some of us dislike it, which is I think uh I think is I think which is actually true because as for my own self, I'm not really a fan of phone conversation because who really wanted to have a communication with other with just days of phone instead of having an interaction with them physically, which, so I think physical interaction and have a conversation with them is much effective or much better rather than using the phone. The fourth one is establishing the context as a sender and choosing the medium or channel. So, in terms of phone conversation in a workplace settings, having or choosing the perfect and much better or effective medium or channel is an essential thing to consider because as a sender and the receiver as well, if both of them doesn't have a perfect combination to interact, there will be a problem and the communication or the conversation will not be eff- will not be as effective as it should be, and choosing the wrong medium or channel will cause a problem, not just on the fact that you can communicate properly, but also it will affect the work, it will affect your business or anything that includes to your uh, to your context. So next, so I have this one is the three things to have an phone communication. The first one is smile while you talk. I think it is very important to consider because since you only have through virtual conversation, you can only see each other in your phone, in your gadgets, and your facial expression is unimportant because the viewer or some those that person who you are talking to will see that if you're having a great time or a bad time, which is you can see their own reaction to your topic. The second one is take note before the conversation and use them to ensure you cover all points, which is an importance, especially if you're having a meeting within your group, within your company. Taking note before the conversation happen is one of the things that you have to make sure in order to not to forget something, especially those important things. Because sometimes what really happens is that despite of being aware of the topic, there's still some situation where you forgot a certain information, and those things we don't consider that as we're not we don't consider that as we prefer it when, especially when having a meeting, because as much as possible we have to make sure we cover all the points, we have to make sure we say everything, especially the most important one. The third one is speak clearly and slowly so your words are understood. So basically this one is really important because since you only have a phone conversation, and we all know there are some noises from the background, there are some hindrances that can cause a misunderstanding just because maybe you have a slow internet connection, maybe because there's a problem with your phone, with your gadgets, and so making sure to speak clearly and slowly, or not that slow, but you have to make sure that those listener will have will surely understand what you're trying to say. So the next one is okay, this one. So since this is a phone conversation, I want to take this chance to tell you the advantages and disadvantages in terms of phone conversation. So let's start with advantages. So the first one is you get immediate feedback on things you say, which is everyone like it. And as a sender, um, getting a feedback from your receiver is a very great way to to make sure that the sender really receive your message. With and as for the feedback, you can clearly see if or identify if the receiver really understand what the context of your message. So the next one is you can call someone anywhere on the planet, which is only in Earth, of course. I think which is really an advantage, of course, because even if you live from away, you can still have a communication with others, especially if you're from especially from foreign country or even the other side of the world. You can still have communication with them, especially nowadays that the the what do you call this, the gadgets nowadays are so much better than before. The next one is businesses are able to reach more audience and grow large thanks to cell phone, and which we all know in terms of businesses, having a great having a big audience or popularity within your business is, as an entrepreneur, I think we really they really like to have those. They really like to have a big popularity. So in order for that, they need to take every chances in order just to have more audience. The fourth one is you can easily handle an urgent problem, which I think uh, what do you call this? Which is also unimportant because uh, you can easily you can easily solve a problem, especially even if you live from away. You can easily have a virtual conversation with them, a meeting with them, just to solve the problem. So now let's move on to the disadvantages. The first one is you generally have to pay for every minute you spend on the call. In the case of mobile or overseas calls, that can be expensive, which is one of the disadvantages because not everyone in this world have, enough money just to have a conversation with their loved ones. And with that, it is, you know, uh, a disadvantage from them because they don't have enough enough money just to have just to have just to call them. The second one is with standard cell phones, only spoken information can be changed. You can send files, and some smartphones, however, do have this facility, in which we all know that there are some particular telephone telephone telephones that can only use through verbally. You can only send them or text them just short messages or just with calling. And and there are some other phones that you can also send files. But in our society, not everyone can have a much better cell phone because there's a lot of things to consider. The next one is there might be noise or interference, so the quality of the call could be poor, which is also an disadvantage because if there are some noise, some loud background music from outside your house, it can uh, it can be it can show that not every phone conversation is an advantage because just from the fact that there are some noise, it can consider that your phone communication can be also poor. The next one and lastly is the person you need should be available. So what if the person is not available as of that particular moment? So you don't basically you won't have any communication with that person. Instead, you have to wait for that person just to have a conversation with them.
Written communication in workplace. So we all know that writing is a core communication skill, and if you have good writing skills, you're able to use language effectively and express yourself clearly. So what is written communication? Written communication is any written message that two or more people exchange. Written communication is typically more formal but less efficient than oral communication. Uh, in written communication, you can refer to memos, uh, composing an email, text messages, job descriptions, business letters, and write a report and go a long way in ensuring our messages have maximum impact before we publish or send it. Uh, Ways to communicate clearly with written communication. So, effective writing allows the reader to understand everything you are saying. So, here are a few ways you can communicate clearly and easily. Number one is Identify and clearly state your goal. Effective written communication has an obvious goal that you convey to the reader. Describe in clear words what you want the reader to do or to know. The next one is use the right tone. Tone can help your writing be more effective. Some forms of communication, such as memorandums, requires a formal tone, and for example, for another example uh, writing to a friend. However, you use an informal tone in this. Remember, the tone you use depends on the purpose of the writing and the audience. Number three is stay on topic. Avoid irrelevant information. Clarity is essential. Keep paragraphs and sentences short, as complicated and lengthy statements slow the read. Next, we um, have someone proofread your writing. Correct punctuation, spelling, grammar are crucial. Have someone read your writing before you can send or share it. If no one is available, then read it out loud to yourself. So, if you remember Miss Bessa's lesson, in one of her lessons, she mentioned that our point of view is different from other people. So, when we make our research or paper, we say that our paper is okay or it is fine. But if we let other people consult our paper, they have a different opinion. The last but not the least is be professional. When writing for work, keep the content professional. Avoid making jokes or discussing sensitive topics that the reader might interpret differently than you intended. A professional tone, particularly in formal communications, gets the reader to trust and respect. Now, I'll discuss the advantages and disadvantages of written communication. Written communication is useful when communicating with people who have different fluency levels, as it helps reduce the chance of misinterpretation. So, one of the main advantages of written communication is that documents are easy to preserve if they are in written form. Oral and nonverbal communication is not preserved, though it can be recorded. It is not convenient to record it every time, so written communication serves as a means of collecting important information from previously. Mm. Another advantage of written communication is it provides a clear and comprehensive grasp of message to be conveyed. Written communication provides us the facility to read the message many times until the recipient fully comprehends it. Furthermore, there are lower chances that any information in the communication is missing or not being conveyed. As a result, the recipient receives and comprehends the exact meaning that the sender wants to convey. Oral or non-verbal communication can be forgotten easily, and sometimes the recipient is not much focused while listening. Another important advantage of written communication is that the documents of written communication act as a permanent record. Furthermore, an organization's records are usually in written format, which can be very worthy for future reference. For example, previous instructions and decisions might serve as guides for future decisions and other references. Uh, and it will save you time and effort in the future if it is in written form. Now, let's discuss the disadvantages of written communication. One of the disadvantages of written communication is being costlier than other communications. For written communications, uh, paper, pen, ink, typewriters, printing machines, and maintaining such equipment and machinery, a computer, and a large number of employees are necessary for its execution. Also, it is expensive as a group of individuals to prepare and distribute the organization. Uh, written communication is not only expensive but also very time consuming. Drafting and forming a message in written form takes much more time than conveying orally. A written message can take 2 or 3 days to reach its intended recipient, but an oral communication message can conveyed in a matter of seconds over the phone. That's why written communication is time consuming as the feedback is not immediate. Um, and also it requires a lot of time. Another disadvantage of written communication is it becomes futile if the communicator or the recipient is someone who cannot read or write. So if the sender is illiterate, then he won't be able to draft a written message. And if the recipient is illiterate, then the written message makes no sense to him or her, as he or her can't read it, and this often leads to ineffective communication. So that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for listening.